It is now 4 days since the Supreme Court overruled Roe v. Wade. There has been a flurry of commentary. You may recall that my show had already aired by the time the decision came down on Friday. I was on an airplane. I rushed to the studio right after I landed and gave my breakdown of the ruling. I certainly was not the only one. There has been a flurry of commentary around the decision. But in a matter of just a few days, I have found it. I have found the single worst reaction to the Supreme Court's decision in Dobbs to overrule Roe v. Wade, brought to you by CNN's Anna Navarro.
I am not anybody to tell you what you need to do with your life or with your uterus. And because I have a family with a lot of special needs kids, I have a brother who's 57 and has the mental and motor skills of a 1-year-old. And I know what that means financially, emotionally, physically for a family. And I know not all families can do it. And I have a step-granddaughter who was born with Down syndrome. And you know what? It is very difficult in Florida to get services. It is not as easy as it sounds on paper. And I've got another step-grandson who is very autistic, who has autism, and it is incredible. And their mothers and people who are in that society, who are in that community, will tell you that they considered suicide because that's how difficult it is to get help, because that's how lonely they feel, because they can't get other jobs, because they have financial issues, because the care that they're able to give their other children suffers.
The Supreme Court's ruling is bad, you see, according to Anna Navarro, because now it won't be as easy to kill people with mental disabilities. And she's not even speaking in the abstract. She's speaking of her own family. She's saying, you know, I have this brother who's got mental disabilities. I have step-grandchildren with mental disabilities, and they're alive. And that's horrible. It's so annoying that they're alive. If they were dead, our lives would be so much better. That's what she's saying. Congratulations, Anna. You managed to beat out Joe Biden and AOC and a whole host of other contenders whose opinions were also ignorant and evil, but not quite so obviously so. That Anna Navarro reaction is so hideous. It's one of the worst things I've ever heard in political commentary. Not just that we should kill certain people, but we should kill extremely vulnerable people. Not just that we should kill extremely vulnerable people, we should kill extremely vulnerable members of our own family because sometimes they might seem a little inconvenient to us. Her opinion is not an outlier. It's not unique. The left has been talking about this for years. They just usually have the sense to speak a little more euphemistically than Anna Navarro is. Fortunately, because she's not as intelligent as the rest of the left, she says the quiet part out loud. But Iceland was bragging about this a few years ago. There was a big headline out of Iceland. Breaking, Iceland eradicates Down syndrome. There's no cure to Down syndrome. They didn't eradicate it in the sense of curing people who have it. They just now kill every single person, just about, who has Down syndrome in Iceland. So they can say it's eradicated because you're committing genocide. That's the eradication, not something exactly that you should be proud of. And you see it, of course, you see it when you go into a doctor's office. When a woman becomes pregnant and you go see the obstetrician, you will be asked if you want to have certain genetic tests. And you say, well, why would we have these tests done? And they say, well, look, the tests are done so that you can find out any abnormalities. If anything might be wrong, you're going to test for Down syndrome. And then we can figure out how to proceed. What are we going to figure out? Oh, you know, then we'll just kind of make a decision on what decision you want him. Oh, you're asking me if I want to kill my kid because he's retarded. That's what you're saying. You're saying, we're going to do a test and we're going to find out if the kid is retarded and then we're going to suggest that you kill him. And you know, the craziest part is it's more politically incorrect. It is more socially unacceptable to say the word retarded than it is to kill a retarded person. Killing a retarded person, totally fine. Totally encouraged, promoted. They're whining on CNN because you're not allowed to do it. But you can't say the word. You have to watch your language while you're killing people. Does that make a lot of sense? I don't think so. Joe Biden is saying practically the same thing, not with regard to people who have mental disabilities, but with regard to the poor. He tweeted out, quote, "The cruel truth is that overturning Roe will hit poor women and girls the hardest." That's the cruel truth. What is cruel about that? Oh, you're saying it is cruel that now we won't be able to kill the poor. Poor women who don't have a lot of money, now will find it a little bit more difficult in certain states to kill their children. And this is really cruel and terrible because now we're going to have more poor people and we're going to have to deal with them. And isn't that annoying? This is Jonathan Swift level stuff. This is eat the Irish babies because we don't want them around kind of stuff. It's not coming even from some lunatic on CNN. That's coming from the President of the United States. The takes on the Roe overruling have been, from the left, have been almost uniformly evil. But when they're not evil, they are extremely stupid. And this is where we have to turn to AOC. AOC says that the Supreme Court sending the issue of abortion back to the states and the people and the people's representatives represents a crisis of democracy.
What I believe that the president and the Democratic Party needs to come to terms with is that this is not just a crisis of Roe, this is a crisis of our democracy. The Supreme Court has dramatically overreached its authority. We had two conservative senators in the United States Senate, Senator Manchin and Senator Collins, come out with a very explosive allegation that several Supreme Court justices misled them during their confirmation hearings and in the lead up to their confirmation. This is a crisis of legitimacy. We have a Supreme Court justice whose wife participated in January 6th and who used his seat to vote against providing documents that potentially led to evidence of such to investigators in Congress. This is a crisis of legitimacy, and President Biden must address that.
Absolute crisis of legitimacy, crisis of democracy. What's the crisis? What's the crisis? AOC at the end there, you hear she's going after Clarence Thomas and his wife Ginny, which the libs have been doing for decades because Ginny is a conservative political activist. And so they've been going after Clarence Thomas since before he was confirmed. The larger claim that they're making here is that the conservative justices misled people, and this therefore creates a great crisis for our democracy. The Dobbs decision is very possibly the most pro-democracy decision that we have ever had in the history of the court. The Dobbs decision represents one branch of government, the judiciary, giving away an issue, sending an issue back to where it had existed for all of American history until 1973, namely to the legislatures, to the democracy. It's a crisis of democracy. How is it a crisis of democracy when the people get more of a say on a political issue? That, of course, is not a crisis of democracy. That's an expansion of democracy. But it just reminds you that when the libs talk about democracy, they don't really mean democracy. This is how it can be the case that when more people vote for Donald Trump than vote for Hillary Clinton, in the states where it matters, where the Electoral College plays a role also in this election, where the democratic process favors Donald Trump over Hillary Clinton, that's a crisis of democracy. How? He won the people. Yeah, but we didn't get the outcome we wanted. When more people in Hungary vote for the right-wing candidate, Viktor Orban, than vote for the left-wing candidate, that's a crisis of democracy. Democracy is in peril. How's that? That's just manifestly absurd. Well, it's the case because when they say democracy, they don't mean democracy. They mean liberalism, they mean leftism, they mean progressivism, they mean whatever policy agenda they want. They can't lose legitimately. So whenever they do lose, it has to be a crisis of legitimacy. Because for the progressive left, progress is clear. They're on the right side of history. The arc of history bends toward AOC or whatever. And so whenever anything interrupts that march toward utopia, that march inevitably toward progress, then it has to be a stolen election. It has to be the Russians interfering. It has to be hanging Chads in Florida. It has to be anything other than what it obviously is in this case and beyond, which is that the people don't exactly like what the libs are doing. Right now, go to ring.com/Knowles. It's summer and people are traveling. You know, I've been on the road for the past week. I was in LA, Santa Barbara, I was in Chicago, I was all over the place, okay? And when I'm on the road, I can feel safe because of Ring. You know Ring. You're going to say, Ring, the video doorbell company? Yes, they have an amazing video doorbell where you can see and speak to whoever's at your door, wherever you are, in the house, outside the house, wherever. You know they've got an alarm. So they've got Ring Alarm that protects your doors and your windows and your whole physical home from freeze, fire, flood, and the bad guys. Now you got to go pro. Be like me, okay? Become a pro. CNET calls Ring Alarm Pro a giant leap for home security. It is this amazing award-winning alarm that protects not just your physical home, but your digital home too. It protects everything. Whether you're in the home, whether you're away from the home, you're just going to feel safe. The cost is unbelievably low compared to the other guys. You may not have known it, but it is true. Ring has that award-winning alarm this busy summer season. To protect all of our homes, you got to go pro with Ring Alarm Pro. Go to ring.com/Knowles, ring.com/Knowles. I'm so glad you liked that clip. Now, you got to subscribe. You got to ring. You got to get those notifications. This has been the absolute greatest month for the judiciary, for the Constitution, for American politics in a very, very long time. Make sure you get the notifications. Don't miss a thing. We'll see you next time.